What if I told you that the first war for Indian independence was fought in 1857, not in the 20th century? Imagine this, a year marked by a large-scale rebellion, a year that changed the course of history. That year was 1857, a time when India was under British rule and the people had had enough. The Revolt of 1857, often referred to as the First War of Indian Independence, was a significant event that shook the foundations of the British Empire in India. This wasn't just a random uprising, it was a turning point in Indian history. It marked the beginning of a new era, an era of resistance and struggle for freedom, a time when Indians from all walks of life united to fight against oppression and injustice. In the next few minutes, we'll dive into the events that led to this monumental uprising. So are you ready to take a journey back in time? Because history, as they say, is about to repeat itself. Did the revolt of 1857 occur out of the blue, or were there signs of discontent brewing? Well, let's dive in and find out. Imagine you're living in 19th century India under British rule. The British East India Company is implementing policies that are causing widespread discontent, and you're beginning to see the seeds of revolt being sown. One of these policies is the doctrine of lapse, introduced by Lord Dalhousie, Governor-General of India. This policy allowed the British to annex any princely state if the ruler was either incompetent or died without a male heir. It's easy to see how this could stoke the fires of resentment, isn't it? But it wasn't just the doctrine of lapse that was causing unrest. The British were also annexing native states, forcing local rulers out of power and imposing their own laws and customs. This was seen as a direct threat to traditional Indian ways of life, and it further fueled the brewing discontent. And then there was the introduction of the new Enfield rifle. This might seem like a minor issue, but it actually played a significant role in sparking the revolt. Here's why. The cartridges for these rifles were rumored to be greased with cow and pig fat. This was a problem because cows are considered sacred by Hindus and pigs are considered unclean by Muslims. To use the cartridges, soldiers had to bite off their ends, which was seen as a violation of their religious beliefs. These actions by the British East India Company didn't just upset the soldiers, they also caused widespread disillusionment among civilians. People started to feel that the British were not only taking away their lands and power, but also their culture and religion. Now, imagine all these factors simmering together, creating a pressure cooker situation. It was only a matter of time before the lid would blow off. These factors set the stage for a revolt that would shake the British Empire to its core. Stay tuned to find out how this revolt unfolded and the impact it had on India and the world. The spark that ignited the powder keg of discontent was an unlikely one. The year was 1857 and a rumor was afoot. The new Enfield rifles introduced by the British East India Company required soldiers or sepoys to bite off the ends of greased cartridges to load the weapon. The grease, however, was rumored to be made from the fat of cows and pigs, a sacrilege to both Hindu and Muslim soldiers. This seemingly minor incident, coupled with the already simmering resentment against the British, lit the fuse of what would come to be known as the Revolt of 1857. In Meerut, a city not far from Delhi, the rebellion found its starting point. On May 10th, 85 sepoys who had refused to use the offensive cartridges were shackled and thrown into prison. Their comrades, enraged by this injustice, broke rank. They released their fellow soldiers, attacked their British officers, and marched towards Delhi. The sepoys declared the Mughal Emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, as the Emperor of India, symbolically challenging the British rule. The rebellion spread like wildfire across the plains of northern and central India. From Kanpur to Lucknow, from Bareilly to Jhansi, the sepoys, bolstered by local rulers and civilians, shook the foundations of the British East India Company's rule. Each city has its own tale of bravery and sacrifice, of heroes and heroines who stood up against a foreign power, demanding justice and freedom. In some places, the revolt took on a more violent form. British officers, men, women, and children were killed. The British in turn retaliated with equal, if not more, brutality. The uprising, however, was not just about revenge, but resistance against the oppressive policies of a foreign power that had been exploiting India's resources for its gain. The Revolt of 1857 was a watershed moment in history, highlighting the strength and unity of the Indian people. The rebellion may not have succeeded in its immediate goal of ousting the British, but it sowed the seeds for the freedom struggle that would eventually lead to India's independence in 1947. While the Revolt of 1857 was eventually suppressed, it left an indelible mark on India and its people. The aftermath of the revolt was a turning point in Indian history. The East India Company, which had ruled India for over a century, was abolished. In its place, the British Crown took direct control of India, marking the beginning of the Raj or British rule. This shift was more than symbolic. It marked a change in the way India was governed, with the British now having a direct stake in the country's administration. The British government, shaken by the revolt, made significant changes. They reorganized the army, the financial system, and the administration to prevent any such rebellion in the future. The Indian army was restructured with a higher ratio of British to Indian soldiers, ensuring a British dominance. Policies were put in place to protect Indian customs and religions, a marked shift from the aggressive policy of westernization that had fueled the revolt. The doctrine of lapse, which had been a major factor in causing discontent, was abolished. But perhaps the most significant legacy of the revolt was its impact on the Indian psyche. The rebellion had been a unifying force, bringing together people from different regions, religions, and social strata. It was the first time that a sense of nationalism, a shared identity, had been sparked among the Indian people. This sense of unity would prove crucial in the years to come, fueling the Indian independence movement. The revolt also marked a shift in British attitudes towards India. The confidence of the British in their ability to control India was shaken, and they realized the necessity of involving Indians in the administration. This led to the introduction of Indians into the civil service and the Legislative Council, a first step towards self-governance. The Revolt of 1857 therefore was not merely a rebellion, it was the first step towards India's long journey to independence. The Revolt of 1857 was a significant event in Indian history, a time of deep discontent sparked by the introduction of cartridges greased with animal fat. It marked a pivotal moment of resistance against British rule. As the revolt unfolded, it brought forth unlikely heroes and dramatic events, leaving a lasting legacy on India's march towards independence. The aftermath of the revolt laid the foundation of a unified struggle, a precursor to the end of British rule. The Revolt of 1857 was a momentous event that marked the beginning of the end of British rule in India.